Hi, I'm Miss Neville, and we are going to do SAT Math Practice questions 7, 8, and 9. Okay, question number 7 gives me a picture. And reading it, it says, in the figure above, the circles are tangent as shown, and the center of circle A is also the center of the largest circle. If the radius of circle A is 2, the radius of circle B is 4, and the radius of circle C is 4, what is the radius of the largest circle? There's a lot of vocabulary in this question that I need to make sure that I understand. The first thing is tangent. Tangent just means that the circles only touch each other once, they don't overlap, and they touch this big circle once, they don't overlap. That's all that tangent means. The center of circle A is also the center of the largest circle, okay. And then they use the word radius a lot. Radius, if you remember, is from the center of the circle outwards, so it's halfway across the circle, that's the radius. So now I'm going to start labeling the information they gave me. The radius of circle A is 2. So let's zoom in. That means from the center of the circle over to the outside of A, this half, this little piece right here, is 2. So I'm going to label that really small. Right here is 2. They told me the radius of circle B is 4. So from the center of circle B outwards, half of that is 4. The radius of circle C is 4. So the center of circle C outwards is 4. For myself, I'm going to label the rest of my picture. If I know that this half is 4, then I also know that this half is 4. So I'm going to label that. Same thing with circle A. If I know that this half is 2, this half is also 2. So I'm going to label that. This is 4, so this is 4. Now, there's more than one way to find our answer. My question is asking me, what is the radius of this large circle? So from this center outwards, how much is that? Well, I can look. I have a 4 plus a 4 plus a 2. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 2 gives me 10. My radius of this large circle is 10. Another way I could have done it, I could have found all the way across 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 4, and then divided it in half, because that would have given me the radius as well. But either way, you end up with 10. Question number 8. If the average or arithmetic mean of x, 5x, and 6x is 8, what is the value of x? You could approach this problem by testing out your answer choices and seeing which one works. For me, I think that would take a little longer. I'm pretty good with finding the average, so I would just set it up and find the average. So for me, I know that the average means you add them all up and divide by however many you have. So I'm going to add up x, 5x, and 6x. I have 3 numbers, so all of those added divided by 3 is going to give me an average of 8. To solve this, it's almost like cross multiplying. I do 3 times 8 first. So x plus 5x plus 6x gives me 3 times 8. So now I can simplify for myself and say, okay, well, how many x's do I really have? If I have 6 and I have 5 and I have 1, that's the same as 12 x's. So now divide by 12 and I get x is 2. They asked me in the question, what is the value of x? So my answer is 2. If I wasn't quite sure, I can quickly check myself. Is 2 plus 5 times 2, which is 10, plus 6 times 2, which is 12, all divided by 3. Does that give me 8? Yes, it does. So I know that I did it correctly. SAT practice question number 9 is another diagram. they gave me this picture. It says the coordinates of point A in the figure above are PR, where the absolute value of P is greater than the absolute value of R. Which of these following could be the slope of this line? I labeled that this is PR, so that means to plot this point, I went over P, up R, and that was how I plotted that point. So from here to here is P spaces away, however many that would end up being. And then from here to here is R spaces up. So I'm just kind of keeping that in mind for myself. They gave me some more information. They said the absolute value of P is greater than R. Obviously, in this diagram, P is going to be a negative number because I'm going left on my x-axis. So P is going to be a negative number, like -5, -10. So if I take the absolute value of that, meaning that it has to be positive, that number for P has to be bigger than the number for R. So for example, P could be -5 and R could be 2. Because the absolute value of -5 is 5, which is bigger than 2. That just means you're going over more spaces than you are going up. So for me, I basically called this -5 and I called this 2. I'm keeping that in mind so I can solve my next part of this problem. They're asking what could be a slope. Obviously, they didn't give us specific numbers, so I can't easily calculate it. I know in my head that slope is rise over run. So I'm going to write that down for myself. Slope is rise over run, which means the amount that you change in y over the amount you change in x. So, to go from A all the way down to B, I go down a certain number of spaces, because that's rise. I'm going up or down. So I go down a certain number of spaces, and then I go over to B. It was really important that we decided that P was bigger than R. So when I go from here to here, I'm going down a little bit, and then I'm going over a lot, because I know that P is bigger. So using my 5 and my 2 example, I go down 2 to get here, then I go down 2 more to get to B. So I really went down 4. So I'm going to write that for myself. I'm going to say, for example, I went down 4. So my rise, or my change in y, is -4 because I went down 4. Then I need to go over, that's my run, to get to B. I originally called this 5, so if I go over some more, that would be like 10. So I'm going over 10. -4 over 10 is a fraction. Obviously, that's not one of my answer choices, but I can already start eliminating. I know that this line is going downhill, which means it has a negative slope. My answer can only be A or B. So I'm going to cross off C, D, and E. Those are definitely not possible answer choices. I'm stuck between -2 or -1/2. I know that P was bigger than R. That's what they told me. So my run part of this problem is going to be bigger. That means my denominator in my slope fraction is going to be bigger. When my denominator is bigger, that's what keeps it as a fraction. So my answer can only be B. There's no way that my slope could be -2 over 1, because that would mean the bottom is smaller. I know that this is not what they told me in the problem. I know that the run, or the x, has to be bigger because they told me that P is bigger. They told me that right here. P is bigger, therefore my run is bigger. Meaning my denominator is going to be bigger, my answer has to be B. These were questions number 7, 8, and 9 for SAT practice, and as always, please let me know if you have any questions.